Hello again, and welcome to another episode here at Vida Digital, where I've had the pleasure of interviewing people that I either follow or subscribe to or admire in technology and the retro community and so on. And this week, I've had the pleasure of being able to interview somebody I've been following for quite some time and whose work I really, really appreciate. His name is Ken. He's Krazy Ken from the Computer Clan, and he's been at this for quite a while as well. And today we're going to talk about his beginning, his origins, how he chooses what to produce, and how to balance that whole, comedy versus depth, technology-wise, and so on. So it's going to be an interesting couple of minutes here with Crazy Ken. Let's start with the basics. What sparked your fascination with retro and rare tech, and how did you turn it into like a full-fledged YouTube career?
It started when I got my first iPod, I think. I was still in middle school and, had some money saved up. My parents, brought me to the Apple store. I bought an iPod. And while I was there, I saw, the giant 30-inch cinema display. And I'm like, I've never seen a computer screen that big before. So, that's modern technology. That's not retro. But what happened was while we were there, the family decided, all right, let's vote. Let's get a new computer. We got an iMac, right? So I started learning like how to teach myself video editing on that iMac with iMovie. And the more I was like Googling around and like searching around YouTube for like tech and Apple related things, that's when I started finding like all these old recordings of like Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive showing off these Macs and stuff from like the late 90s. And it was intriguing. I was intrigued by the industrial design. I was intrigued by how Steve Jobs spoke and how he presented on stage. So that got me into researching retro stuff more. And then I was already dabbling in the YouTube space. It was really just a hobby for many years. But then what happened was I found a YouTube channel, two YouTube channels. One was called The Creative One, run by David DeFranco, and one was by Alfred de Blasi, who was actually an Apple salesman in like 1977, like at the like early beginnings of all this. I was watching their videos, like their very loose, unscripted vlog type format on YouTube in the early days of YouTube, 2007. And I was like, I want to do that. So then I started doing that too. And many years later, now it's a full-time business.
Now, y- looking back, how has your storytelling style evolved over, I think, over 15 years of YouTube?
Yeah,
Especially
18,
as,
but who's counting?
yeah, especially as your audience has matured over the time.
It's gotten a lot more intentional. Like back in the day when I started video, I didn't really understand the importance of storytelling in a video, but now I try to add some more of those storytelling components to things. In fact, I'm going to be doing even more soon. I just got back from Vid Summit in Dallas, and multiple sessions and people I talked to, we're talking about the importance of having some sort of storytelling framework in your style, in your episodes. So I already have these really cool things going on of like, Krazy Ken is this character, he lives underground, he's trapped under there. And he does all these cool things, but there's opportunities I can take to kind of like make the character more relatable at times, leave the viewer feeling something. And like, I'm going to try to seize those opportunities more and put more of those storytelling things in my episodes. Because at the end of the day, when someone watches your episodes, they remember how you made them feel much more than they remember what you said. So that's an intentional thing I want to do more with my storytelling in my show.
Now, when you tell stories, it's usually about vintage or obscure devices that you want
Yeah.
to feature. How do you choose and research when you're investigating all of this old hardware? How much restoration or reverse engineering do you typically do behind the scenes?
So I don't do much restoration or like repair kind of stuff anymore. Back in the day when I was more of strictly an unscripted channel, I would do that sort of stuff, but I don't really do that anymore. In terms of how do I find what I want to talk about, most of the time it's viewer submissions. Like that's the cool thing that the computer clan community has gotten so big. people just send me stuff almost every day. And sometimes it's a really cool idea. And it's like, okay, let's talk about that company that went defunct that nobody knows it ever existed. Let's talk about this internet scam, this piece of junk product on the internet. Let's dissect that. Sometimes I'm just with friends too. We're on a train or just chilling in, their living room or whatever. And like, boom, an idea will come up. I think that's how the Litro came up, the camera that you could shoot the photo and focus the photo after you take the photo. And that ended up being one of my most popular episodes. The whole idea started just, by bouncing things around in a living room conversation, just super casually. And then in terms of the research, I'll do some of my own stuff, but my buddy Sage, who runs the Savvy Sage YouTube channel, he is my primary research guru. He's a very detail oriented, so I hire him to do that. He's actually right now working on the research for not my next episode, but my next episode. So we're trying to get ahead of it, and that will be about the Philips CDI multimedia video game console that not a lot of people remember, but it was like pivotal in video game history because more or less that's how the PlayStation ended up becoming a thing. It was because of this obscure Philips product. So cool stuff coming.
Yeah, a lot of products that didn't quite make it made it possible for other products to really, really make it
They were
after.
stepping stones. Yeah.
Stepping stones that people slipped and fell into the river after they stepped on them. But yeah, yeah.
Great way to put
Okay.
it. Yes.
Yeah. Now, speaking of stuff that you uncover, what's the most surprising or innovative piece of forgotten technology that you've ever uncovered?
Hmm. That's a good one. I, I am so sorry. Let's cut that
No
out.
problem. I don't script or edit really. I don't have the time or the infrastructure yet, so it's by the seat of the pants. Don't worry about that.
Well, lesson learned to turn on do not disturb mode. Anyway,
I actually make my phone on like airplane mode because you never know.
yep, yep. Um, I do apologize. You'll have to repeat what you asked. Like most innovative product I looked at, you said?
That you've ever uncovered when you're looking for like forgotten or obscure technology. What's something that made you really go like, wow, I was not aware of this. This is something that I need to share with people.
Hmm. I think you stumped me. That's a good one.
And while you think about that, a lot of the
Yeah.
times, one of the things that I worry when I see people, for example, showing things like prototypes and so on, is the ethics part. Sometimes you don't know if that prototype left the factory out the back or something like that. So how do you deal with that, when you're researching and people just, put something like a prototype in your hands?
Yeah, in regards to prototypes, generally speaking, I do have some connections of people that know people within, let's just say Apple, for example, because that's a big
Mhm,
focus for prototypes for me.
mhm.
Generally speaking, if the product is older than 5 years, it's whatever. It's not like it's full of trade secrets or anything. And a lot of the prototype stuff I have is from like the late 90s, like early aughts. So there's nothing like we haven't nothing super crazy that we haven't seen. Those products have already been in production at Apple and discontinued, years ago. But if it was like something new that was like dropped in my hands, like, hey, this is like the Vision Pro 2 prototype, I'd be like, uh, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's never happened. But no, for stuff that's like not out yet, I'd be like, nope. Like, I don't want to. I don't want
you
to
don't
get
want
on
to be the
Apple's bad
punchline
side.
to, yeah, you don't want to be the punchline to a Vision Pro 2 walks into a bar and gets lost. I forget
Oh,
the rest.
oh man, yeah, right. With the iPhone 4, that was a fun story too. I covered a long time ago.
Definitely. Now, going back to
Yeah,
the storytelling, how do you balance entertainment and death? I mean, we, your fans, we usually love your mix of humor and accuracy. How do you balance that entertainment and technical depth in your videos?
I'll be honest. The answer is probably not the most satisfactory answer, but I have no idea. It just comes to me that way. I guess I've always just been more on the like funny side of things. Like I know not everyone thinks I'm funny, but like even when I started doing stuff on the channel years ago, like I would goof up, I would make mistakes, I would embrace it. Like it's just kind of a natural thing when I'm writing. Like the funny stuff just comes up, or when I'm talking with Delicious Damien, my friend Damien, who plays Delicious Damien on the show. He also helps behind the scenes, and even just like yesterday, we were having dinner, and he would just bring up these funny ideas that I can then work into scenes. So it's a pretty organic process. There's not like a super like set structure to it.
Yeah, there's funny fails, but there's also failures that teach. What's a memorable moment that you failed at on camera but taught you and viewers the most, and that you would try differently now?
Oh man, this one's probably not like the deepest, most philosophical answer, but several years ago, I did a story about the famous Windows XP like Bliss Hill wallpaper. You know, with the rolling green hills and everything. Like famous photograph. Pretty much everyone has seen it. Well, I wanted to go to the actual hill to photograph it and do a story about it. I did this whole thing. I got this whole thing planned. I come home. I do all this editing. Yada yada yada. As I'm like in the post production process, I realize, oh crap, I visited the wrong hill. So I traveled all this way, went to the wrong hill. There were two hills on Google Maps. One was the wrong one. So I worked it into the story. I played it off as a funny thing. But I guess one of the life lessons there is, the importance of pre-production. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. The 5 or 6 P's, whatever. Really make sure like you know what you're doing, you know where you're going before you film something and spend all the time and money to do it, because like a solid pre-production foundation makes the rest of the filming and editing go smooth and helps you avoid mistakes. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a boo-boo.
Oh, definitely. Now, it makes you really groan when people say things like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll fix it in post."
I've heard that so much because post-production is my favorite part of the process, and I was a
Mhm.
post-production supervisor at other companies before. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh boy, just fix it now. In a way, it kind of goes two ways, because one, I like the creative problem solving and fixing things in post, but also at the same time, it's like take an extra 10 minutes in pre-production to fix the dang thing. Like I remember long ago, I was doing this shoot. These guys were setting up a backdrop and it was wrinkly. And I'm like, can someone just get like a bottle of water and spray it down and get rid of the wrinkles? And they were rushing it. They started filming, and then we get all the footage in and we're like, the background looks like a piece of,
Mhm.
piece of shish. And now it's like, well, now I have to like mask out these wrinkles and like soften them up. And I did it, like whatever, but it's like 10 extra minutes of like planning could have prevented like hours of editing. But anyway.
Yeah, I've had I usually have like someone else look at the stuff that I'm doing or whatever. Everybody has the ability to go like, oh, that thing in the corner, move it out of the way or whatever, stuff that you don't see right then and there. Now, that's the video production process and the retro stuff, but you're also well known for scam busting and doing
Yes.
critical analysis of products that sometimes, let's say they oversell themselves
Yeah.
to be nice. What was the first scam tech product that truly made you realize that you could, educate people as well as entertain them, on how to spot these scams and how to avoid them?
I think it started at the beginning. I kept seeing this commercial for this thing called the Lit Mobile. It claimed to be a like a solar powered like battery bank. And I'm watching these commercials constantly pop up and I'm like, there is no way in hell this is real. So I got annoyed to the point where it's like I need to dissect this in an episode on my Krazy Ken's Tech Talk show. I didn't know the scam busting thing was going to become like a recurring thing I did, but when it got so many views, it's got like over 2 million views now, which is huge for my channel. Like when it got a lot of views, I was like, wait a minute, I can do a sequel to this. So then I did a part 2 and a part 3. And then I'm just like, well, I have a lot of marketing background working in video for other companies. It's like I can kind of like flip that around and now show all the tricks people do to abuse those marketing tactics and trick people. And so then I was like, all right, let's just keep doing these scam busters. And I try to balance it. Like, I don't want to become known as a scam channel. There's other people like Kit Boga, Scammer Payback, that do a great job at that. I don't want that to be my main identity. I want it to be a part of it, but not the main thing. So I try to balance it. I'll do like 2 scam busters and then like two other stories, and then two scams, two other stories, kind of keep it balanced like that.
I've seen some products that you've analyzed that are not like super outright lying scams or whatever. They're just really overselling themselves.
Yeah.
What's the most sophisticated deception that you've seen so far regarding those camera tricks that you mentioned, or spec inflation, or fake certifications? And how can people better tell so they can uncover it themselves and not have to wait for the next Ken video?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, that's kind of tricky because you can't just teach someone in a day like, hey, this is how you spot like fake video editing or fake video tricks. Like I've been doing this, goodness, 18 years, so like I've seen a lot of things on how people can fake things. So I think the more you just expose yourself to other people's content like mine, like teaching you how to spot fake things, you'll just learn it through experience. There's some basic things you can do, like when you get an email, make sure you see who the sender is. Nowadays we have the little verified check marks that pop up in mail clients. If you get a text message, check the phone number, like basic things like that most people don't think about, but it's important. Like I can't even tell you how many scam text messages I get that might look legit, like, hey, your package tracking update, but like you check the phone number and it's like country code 63. Like, that's not America. Like, where is, I don't even know where that is. It's fake.
It's not America, the continent, I can tell you that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes you're just going to learn from mistakes. I've accidentally, before I started doing scam busting, I've bought some accidental knockoff products before. And when I realized it, I cancel my order and stuff like that. So, yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, you just learn through the mistakes. Pain is the greatest teacher, I think.
Definitely. If it can be somebody else's pain, well, we'll keep watching your
Yes.
video.
Yes, exactly. If I can suffer for you, let me suffer for you and just learn from my episodes. Absolutely.
Now,
But
part of
oh,
that
but
suffering is when you expose some of these scams, you kind of risk getting backlash from the scammers. Has that ever happened to you?
it's never happened actually. I've actually had a few people reach out and offer like, hey, we did a new version, can you give us another chance? And I'm a huge believer in second chances, like why not? I don't always put that stuff into an episode because if there's not enough of a story there, I can't release an episode. um but yeah, I've had a couple reach out to me. For the most part, I just don't hear anything, but the page will shut down or like their listing will get taken off of Walmart. It's happened many times, probably, yeah, like 10 or so times where I can distinctively remember like the actual website or listing like gets pulled pretty quickly after I do an episode.
That's good to know. And one of the great things about the whole Computer Clan community is the community. How do tipsters, other creators, and viewers feed investigations or help you authenticate rare stuff? What's your vetting process for when you get leads that might lead you to the wrong conclusion or whatever?
Yeah, in terms of tips, I don't have a huge vetting process because a tip is a tip. I will take them all in and I'll be responsible for verifying if they're real or not later. Usually, the only question I will ask a tipster is, hey, what made you feel weird about this? If it's a scam thing, like, hey, like what on the website, what in the commercial did you see that made you like, raise your red flag? What's triggering the spidey sense? In terms of like validating things, I will test the product myself in all my episodes, like except for some of the really early ones. In all my Scam Buster episodes, I test every single product. I go into it with the mindset of, oh, it could work. They say it works in the commercial. Okay, I'll try it. I go in with a very neutral, play dumb mindset, and I test it thoroughly. And I really do. And I think the proof is in the pudding when you see the results on camera. And the other thing is too, in those episodes, I like to work with people who are experienced in like the scientific field that the product relates to. So like the most recent episode had a lot to do with x-rays and polarized light. So I worked with four people, a mix of PhD in like physics people and like radiology professionals. I worked with them to really teach how the real science works. And I think that's important because if I teach through my episode how the real science works, the viewer can then learn something new and understand how the fake science doesn't work.
Definitely. It's to go from Hanlon's razor to Occam's razor in a sense. Now, going back to the topic of retro tech, you have a lot of old Macs and things like that that you sometimes show in your episodes and so on. I'm sure you sometimes fire them up and use them and play with them and so on. What design ideas from retro devices, computers, wearables, or whatever, do you think you'd bring back today? And which do you think should stay in the museum?
I really do miss translucent tech. Like when I look at like the old iMacs and I could see through them, or even like the old like N64s when they did the translucent color ones. I really do miss like tech that I could just see through and look at. And that's something I liked about the nothing phones. I liked how you could like see inside of them. Um I'm not an environmentalist expert, but I'm guessing we don't do that much anymore because plastic is not recyclable, or not as recyclable as aluminum is. So, I'm guessing that's a main reason why we don't have a lot of translucent stuff anymore. But I do miss it. I do like the way it looks.
We do, but it's for like prisons, if I recall correctly.
Yes, that is true. There that you do have the translucent tech for prison tech. I'm guessing it's so you can't hide things in there.
Exactly. Exactly.
It
Now,
looks cool though.
oh, definitely. I completely and totally agree. That's one thing that I'd love to bring back. Anything that, like the Cross of Coronado, you would say it belongs in a museum. It shouldn't come back at all.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess there's some like basic answers like display technology. Like I'd rather use a sexy LCD over a CRT any day, but I still do miss like the retro look of a CRT. We've evolved past them. Yeah, I don't really have anything like a super solid answer
I'd
there.
say orange gas plasma because the blue ones look cool.
Oh, I suppose I actually no, I did see some orange gas plasma at a vintage computer festival recently. Now that I think about it,
Speaking of VCF, what's your
yes.
take on how the whole VCF phenomenon? Because there's like a VCF per rump and there's a VCF everywhere nowadays. I haven't seen one in Latin America yet. I know that there's a big community in Brazil and other places, but how do you see the whole vintage computer movement going forward, not just restoring and preserving 40 and 50-year-old computers, or in the case of Usagi Tech, like 80-year-old computers, but also how are we going to continue that tradition, maybe preserving stuff that we bought last Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, on a technical level, I can't really explain like how well we preserve modern technology. I don't really work in the hardware space in terms of like fixing things and preserving things. Uh, I think it's cool that VCF has exploded as big as it is. It's a little confusing because there's the Vintage Computer Federation, but then there's a separate entity that actually owns the largest meetup, which is Vintage Computer Festival Midwest. That's under a different LLC.
Mhm.
But the fact that those keep getting bigger is really cool. I think it's important for us to remember and cherish and appreciate where we came from, so we can appreciate what we have. I think you send a person like a younger person to these museums and like have them use a computer with like 48K of memory. It kind of puts things in perspective about like everything you can do just even on your wrist nowadays. But in terms of like technical steps that we take to preserve like stuff we buy now, which would be like in a museum 30 years from now, I mean that's the kind of out of my wheelhouse.
Now, part of what makes the whole computer clan community important also is giving back. And you, through your organization or whatever, have something called the Chromebook per million views pledge.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose human IT? And have you heard any stories from recipients? And how could viewers amplify the impact beyond just watching your videos?
I don't remember how I met Human IT. I legit do not remember, and that's maybe a little embarrassing to admit. but I just thought it would be cool because like I always did the charity thing behind the scenes. Like I always took 10% of my salary and donated it to people who need it. But I thought it would be cool a couple years ago when I started this to like make it a little more tangible and tech related. So that's why I did the like, hey, every 1 million views, I donate a Chromebook slash laptop to Human IT. And it actually works out logistically also kind of well because I believe their main headquarters is in Detroit. So as a Midwest person, that makes it easy. Uh, it'd be cool to go volunteer at their headquarters someday, but I think they have like other facilities around. In terms of people like supporting Human IT beyond just watching my show, they do accept monetary donations on the Human IT website, but they also accept physical products. So you can donate older computers, and I'm guessing they have some sort of verification, like cleaning process to make sure they work. But yeah, I mean, honestly, anything to one keep computers out of landfills is great, and then two to give computers to underdeveloped communities, schools that don't have the budget. Like if we can repurpose that stuff, keep it out of the garbage, and give it to people who need it, heck yeah, like keep doing it. And Human IT does that, so I like supporting them.
That's great to hear. Now, what's next for the Computer Clan? Would you ever consider, because you do have the experience, to do long form documentaries or collaborations with maybe museums or any retro computing archives or anything like that?
I have thought about long form documentaries before. I feel like that would probably be a post YouTube thing. Not that I have any plans on leaving YouTube anytime soon, but I've seen some other creators like quote unquote graduate from YouTube to like Netflix or something. So like if that happened to me, for example, I think the type of like medium I would focus on is doing some sort of tech oriented documentary. That's not in my immediate plans. That's just, spitting out ideas. Collabing with some museums on some things would be pretty cool. I actually was just talking with someone about a museum in Chippewa Falls because that's where Cray Computers started, and I was literally just there for a trip, completely unrelated to the museum. I didn't even know the museum was there, gonna be honest. But I thought, oh, that's so cool. Like, no one thinks about like Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin being like a big place for computers to come out of, but those giant Cray supercomputer mainframes, like it all started there. So I think it'd be cool to collaborate with them, maybe like film a tour and like release that as some like bonus material. And in terms of like future computer clan things that are actually in progress, I am working on launching a short form strategy because I'm primarily long form like 20 to 30-minute stuff. But for new people who have never heard of the computer clan before, I think doing short form like clips from my bigger stuff would be a great way to shake their hand and get them in the door. So that's something new I am working on. And also
Yeah,
just yeah.
no, go ahead. I was going to interject because I've actually started following some creators who started doing that
Mm-hmm.
because of that. And I
Yeah.
think it's a great way to do that. But I see you more of a, kind of like Joe Scott does, that you do like long form stuff for Nebula afterwards as kind of a stepping stone to Netflix or something like that. Maybe on the industrial design that inspired you to go into what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean that certainly could be. I do know some friends who have exclusive stuff on Nebula that absolutely could be a stepping stone in the future. Haven't pursued anything with that like physically yet, but hey, it could happen.
Definitely. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Hope to talk to you again if you have new projects or anything that you want to share. I really enjoyed this conversation and I look forward to seeing more of your videos and getting more computers in the hands of people through Human IT and just following your projects as you continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on the show, Alex.
Thank you. Well, that was Ken from Computer Clan, and thank you for if listening and watching. If you've made it this far, thank you. Remember to like and share and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.